Welcome, one and all, to World in a Jar. We're your hosts, Kyoko and Vale. Our goal is to take a word, concept, or idea, spin it into a story. Be it a character, NPC, group, city, you name it. And thus, those ideas we create become our world in a jar. Of course, they won't all fit in the same jar, so our selection is constantly growing every week. With many spices to choose from, locations, genres, heroes, villains, and tropes, we hope to give you a jar filled with fun and interesting concepts. But first, how you doing, Vale?
I am doing good, and I hope our first guest is also doing good.
Oh,
how's it going,
first
Charlie?
Guest?
Oh my god. It's cutting out again, I bet.
Yeah.
It's going good. I'm excited to be here.
Cool. So, I did not have a script for introducing our guest, but our first guest of the show is my Uncle Charlie. He works how do I describe? He owns the Fire Thieves studio, where he crafts all different kinds of things: LARP weapons, fucked up wasteland bears, anything and everything creative.
I also write, do art, kind of stuff, create games. So I do a lot of world building.
He's the one that taught me to world build. So yeah, I'm very excited to have you on the show.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, we're happy to have you here. It's really nice to have our very first guest, especially within this 3-episode miniseries.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, last time we created castles and castle towns, and drew inspiration from a couple different things. My castle town was a town of food and splendor and delicious smells of spices and tea, with a secret mercenary guard group, lycanthrope underbelly, and a rebel working to undermine the mercenaries. And then Kyoko.
My castle town. Yeah. My castle town was a castle town of extravagance and splendor and beauty that ended up, or may end up being, incredibly unsustainable. Talks of courageous heroes throughout the royalty and the kingdom, but what does courage truly mean when you ignore the issues around you?
It's a fun concept.
Thank you.
And so this episode, part 2, we are designing the villains of these castle towns, their motivations, and how they play out in this.
And as I don't have a castle town, what is my
the heroes, your players,
way to help here? Just
will. Say that again?
What's my way to help here, since I don't have a castle town to work on?
You can just design your own villain. We might be able to quickly design a castle town for you, but the episode is mostly about designing villains.
Right.
And so, with a quick inspiration segment, where does everyone draw inspiration when they design their villains?
Do you want to go first, or should I? Or should our guest go first?
I'm still deciding which of my 10 I want to do. Whether I want to fulfill the bingo card of destiny, or whether I want to fight against it. But yeah,
either way, I'm fulfilling the bingo card.
So
just have to
not
slip
on the
all of them in one by one.
Right. I can definitely talk about these on Twitter sporadically, or if we have a break episode, I can talk about, or if we have a break in official podcast episodes, we can definitely talk about our favorite villains. But I think, Charlie, I think you should go first.
All right. Well, like I was mentioning before, there's a lot of franchises that just have such good villain writing. Like, anything from Avatar franchise is pretty solidly exploring different villain themes, different ways villains can come about. But just for the contrast, I want to make my villain Javert from Les Miserables.
No, that should be on the bingo card.
I gave you the chance to say. I'm surprised you didn't. But especially in comparing him with Thénardier. And I looked at the official text on those characters, how like they're written for just like as a quick guide of who the character is in Les Miserables. Like if you're going to be playing it, this is what your rundown would be if you're reading the script. And 2 lines popped out to me for Thénardier, who is just this absolute scoundrel survivor, no morals ever. Their line is, he is above nothing and below everything.
Ooh.
And for Javert, of course, everybody knows he's the ultimate lawful good. But his big fatal flaw is mentioned in the last line, which is that he has no room for mercy.
Because the entire movie he's I'm blanking on the name. Jean Valjean is fighting against Javert's perception that anyone who does crime is utterly evil and will never change. And
And there was the cutout. So the entire movie Jean Valjean was fighting against, and then nothing.
Fighting against Javert.
Fighting against Javert's perception that anyone that does evil is evil and can never change.
Mm-hmm.
And so his merciless pursuit of justice I love that it blinds him until Valjean completely upsets his worldview.
I mean, you have to wonder, though, was it really a pursuit of justice? Because, I mean, it was a form of justice, but it was easy to see that it was a deeply unjust form of justice they were living in and that he was enforcing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He had to find justifications for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But without those, he would easily have been a hero.
Exactly.
And that's one of the things I want to focus on, is that villains really are heroes, just with these deep-seated flaws. Or even if the flaw is just disagreeing with society sometimes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Or in Javert's case, agreeing too much with society.
Yeah,
Or-
basing his personality on that.
Right. So yeah, Kyoko, do you have any inspirations?
Yeah. So the 2 inspirations that I had initially were both from anime. One would have been Sesshomaru and or Naraku from Inuyasha. But I've chosen I want to focus on Orochimaru from Naruto. I've been a big fan of Naruto since I was like 8 years old. I've read the manga in both English and Japanese. I've watched the anime in both English and Japanese, things like that. And Orochimaru, as a villain, is really interesting because he is a hero turned villain. So Orochimaru is part of the 3 legendary Sannin, so 3 super powerful ninja that almost single-handedly, like, ended one of the Shinobi World Wars. And it was in the Second Shinobi World War that Orochimaru became, like, supremely, he became, like, obsessed with the idea of learning every single jutsu around the world, so he started, like, conducting illegal experiments, which, like, included experimenting on living and dead people, and a bunch of other stuff. And he, just in general, is seen as the big villain of the first, really of the first series of Naruto, so original Naruto. And even throughout a good portion of Naruto Shippuden. But he's really self-centered, he's incredibly smart, which is another, like, trait that a lot of villains are given. seen as like intellectually superior to the heroes sometimes. Orochimaru in this case, especially in the original Naruto, being so much older than Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura, and even Kakashi, he's seen as like so much more intellectually like powerful, that he'll do really anything he can to achieve his goals. Like, the fact that the reason he takes Sasuke under his wing is because he wants the power of the Uchiha clan. So he's like, oh, let me essentially groom Sasuke to be what I want him to be, and then I can take what I want from him. And of course, Sasuke, once he gets older, he's just like, no, I have my own agendas, I'm gonna kill you.
Sasuke is also often a villain, right?
In Shippuden, he's considered more of like an anti-hero, and then later in the series, towards like the Kage Summit and things like that, towards like the later third of Shippuden, he's considered like a villain. Really, it's post him killing Itachi that he's like in the time between him like killing Orochimaru and then like the fourth great ninja war. He's considered like a villain by most characters in the world.
And I didn't even know Orochimaru started as a hero, because I watched the first like DVD volumes of Naruto, and I got up to when they were all in the forest for what was that exam?
Oh, the tuning exams.
Yeah, it was after Rock Lee bodied Gaara.
Yeah, that's a good fight. That's such a good fight.
And then
but yeah, Orochimaru is like straight up he like had been planning all of that stuff since the tuning exams, since way before the tuning exams.
And I love Smog is not on my list of villains, but I love when villains kind of adhere to the principle of Smog's dialogue with Bilbo, where he's this incredibly powerful, humongous, lethal force, but is also supremely intelligent and can outfox anyone without having to resort to his power.
Well, a character like that often has a fatal flaw like pride, something that can be taken advantage of by a clever hero that even gets past their intelligence.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that was Orochimaru's downfall, was his pride and his confidence that like he could beat Sasuke when it came time to like actually take Sasuke's powers and stuff like that. And Sasuke used that against him, which was Orochimaru's ultimate downfall until he was resurrected.
Definitely.
And what's your inspiration, Vale?
I was hoping I'd have more time.
Roll a d10.
Kyoko,
I suggest not the Cersei Lannister story.
Right. Well, I can talk about Cersei. Kyoko, flip a coin.
You want to talk about Kefka again?
Flip a coin. Am I adhering to the? Am I adhering to the bingo card?
To the bingo card.
Heads
or tails?
Heads is the bingo card.
Tails.
Okay. I'm gonna pick Judge Claude Frollo from The Hunchback of Notre Dame. He is a villain that sticks out to me because of the way he is characterized in his song, which juxtaposes Quasimodo's song, where Quasimodo is singing a song about love, and then it transitions to Frollo, who is singing about his sinful lust for Esmeralda. And it's very interesting how they set up the song where he's praying that Esmeralda either marries him or is taken out of his life. He's a lot more violent than how they characterize the better parts of Christian faith. But he's more violent and wants her to die if she doesn't choose him. But he's singing this entire song about how he wants her to be his or he wants her to be gone. And there's that moment towards the end of the song when the guard comes in and tells Frollo Esmeralda has escaped. She's nowhere in the cathedral. And that to me was the scene of God sending him an angel, sending him the chance to forget about Esmeralda and continue, even though he is still a fucked up man. Chris, edit that out. He's still a
No,
violent...
Chris, leave that in. He's a fucked up man.
He is a fucked up man. But to leave his violence and his lust for Esmeralda and just not think about it again. And his answer to that angel, saving him from his moral quandary, was calling it an idiot. And then pursuing Esmeralda.
Yeah.
And so I love that they play into his flaw of it's really just self-righteous, that everything he does is right, and he's corrupted by his authority, and kind of half recognizes his sins. Like, he's singing this entire song about his sin and then choosing to sin anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I love a villain that gets characterized so thoroughly. Sometimes I've been thinking about showing my players like a scene of the villain that the player characters might not be seeing, or like introducing an NPC that can scry on the villain or something. Because is very defining.
As a storytelling mechanic, I highly recommend. Damn it! I think I cut off again just as I started talking.
No, you were there.
No, I heard you.
Oh, okay. I'm just saying, one mechanic you can use is that I highly recommend is go ahead and doing that, giving them the behind the scenes, letting the players see that even if the characters don't.
Mm-hmm. Especially because there's a lot of moments where the players aren't interacting directly with the villain, but I love a moment when the villain's plans are foiled and they just are so pissed off by the players. And so that could be
absolutely.
That could be like a session epilogue where the player characters aren't privy to it, but then you start describing the scene. The villain's henchman comes back. Sire, they stole the whatever artifact they're hunting, and then the villain just throwing a table, breaking shit, being so angry, and giving the players that satisfaction of winning.
Or vowing revenge and making a threat, like, oh, well, I guess their families will have to answer for that kind of thing, that players will then be able to anticipate.
Exactly.
Because I think it's important to remember that the story is for the sake of the players. They'll take care of the characters' investment in it if you can get the players invested.
And it might tear the veil of player knowledge versus character knowledge, but the players are also developing the story with you, and giving them that behind the scenes gives them a little more agency to help create the story with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, that's my big inspiration this episode. I didn't get to talk about Chrono Trigger, but I did just mention it, so we did get the bingo.
Mark your bingo cards. There was also a cat sighting in my time.
Oh,
so
really?
Mark your bingo cards.
Which one?
Yep. My cat AX.
Nice.
Named after my very first D&D character. But yes, shall we get into the meat of the episode?
Yes. I just detected a problem with our formula. Since it's been us two the entire time, we've been flipping a coin, but there's no three-sided coin.
I'll just roll a D3.
I got a D6.
I mean, you live in a world of dice. How would there not be?
A nice brass D6.
I pulled up rolladice.net. Yeah, you can roll a D6. That's fine.
Okay. Who's 1 to 2? Who's 3 to 4? Who's 5 to 6? No one answered.
I
So-
guess.
Or
Uh,
just do a flip a coin and let me go last, so I can get the sort of format how you guys do it down.
Fair.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
All right, Vale, heads or tails?
Tails.
I once again cannot flip this coin properly. Okay, fuck it, I'm picking it up off the table. I haven't looked at it. Tails.
Damn it. We need to add to the bingo card. Vale wins the coin flip. I feel like it happens a lot.
Vale goes first.
So my prompts are linear and complication. So it's not like there's not a lot of fluff to go on with this.
Yeah, I would say if you want, you can roll for an adjective and replace one of those words with the adjective. Since we're building a character.
It is on adjectives. What the fuck? It should be on adjectives.
Yeah, I
But
guess
then
linear is a
then-
descriptor, but that's weird.
Then I got on my second roll mold.
Now that's something to work with.
There we go. Well,
Mhm.
and then the other one was confrontation, which how could we not with a villain? So, to harken back to the previous episode, my castle town was filled with these delicious teas and spices. They were very isolationist and self-sustaining, where they had all the resources they need, which made their resources more of a commodity outside of their influence because they didn't have to trade it so much. And then they hired a mercenary group full-time as defenders of their castle, who had done some pretty evil things to a guy that's now rebelling against the corrupt system. And so... And also these mercenaries are lycanthropes. I'm going through all this hoping that I can divine a villain, because really there were two ways I could go about it, where the rebel is the villain or the mercenaries are the villain.
Well, they're both villains for each other.
They are antithetical to each other, where they are trying to destroy each other.
I mean, what's really the difference between a villain and a hero besides disagreement?
Right.
Some fundamental aspect. And, you know, as long as they have the power to affect each other's world somehow.
And with mold, that opens up an interesting avenue of attacking the city's assets. With all of these spices and teas and delicious things that sustain this city. Mold is certainly like a biological weapon.
Yeah, it just depends on whether you want this story to be focused on siding with the people, quote unquote, siding with the tea farmer, or siding with the government, quote unquote, the mercenary group.
Well, I think if he's using mold, that's going to piss everybody off. If it's the rebel using it, he's going to seem like a villain to everybody.
And the rebel came from a farming family, and then lycanthropes came in and destroyed his family and his farm. So I think he, of course, he does think he's the hero, rebelling against the city that will do nothing against the lycanthropes. Now he's going rogue, and now he's trying to destroy all of the city's assets to make it finally care about its assets.
Yeah.
So, and he's probably the first introduction the party has, where he's trying to figure out who the werewolves are and where they came from, which we decided they're the upper echelon of the mercenary company. And so he can definitely be a quest giver turned enemy, where they start investigating for him. He finds out the conspiracy, and that drives him off the deep end.
Yeah.
And that gives the party and it's like such a gray situation all around, because it's his former bosses that killed his family to see if it would turn him more loyal to their company. And so there's not really a right group in this situation, except for probably not destroying the city and its structure and all the food that sustains the people.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to work in linear in some way.
Linear progression towards becoming the villain.
Right.
Or, like, their way of thinking is so linear that the party starts to catch on that they're the villain.
Yeah, he has one goal in mind, and that's vengeance.
Yeah.
And so that's his, like, progression. First he finds out who the lycanthropes are. He then probably quests the PCs to figure out what's causing, like, degradation of the crops and whatnot, finding out it's this horrific mold, and then bringing him back a sample, and that's what he uses to launch his vengeance quest.
Yeah.
What is his actual vengeance quest caused by?
The death of his family that was killed by the lycanthropes that secretly are the higher rankings of the mercenary company he used to work for. He used to work for.
So is his goal just revenge, or is he trying to bring about a change?
He definitely sees himself as trying to bring about a change. For the TV trope we got, it was called He Who Fights Monsters, and the trope often pretends that they're just looking for justice, but what really motivates them is revenge. And so his self-righteousness comes from, I'm looking for justice so that way no one is harmed by these evildoers again. But really, in his motivation, and he may not recognize it, is I'm going to ruin everyone that ruined my life.
So if it came down to it, if he had to make a choice between sacrificing his revenge to do the most effective move towards his stated goal, would he choose revenge over that?
Yes, he would. And he doesn't present it that way, but he definitely would.
Does he realize that? Is he self-aware of that, or was he saying, no, I'm doing this for good reasons, and then if it came down to, be like, you know what?
You cut out, but I don't think he is aware that he would be. So one of his character traits now, because of this, is angry or quick to anger. Because he doesn't realize he would act that way until he has to, and in his rage against his own personal villains, betrays his stated cause.
Yeah, my question was just, is he aware of it?
He is not.
Okay.
So
yeah, I think that can definitely work, especially depending on what you randomize for part 2, on what really modifies his plans.
Exactly.
That also gives you a great opportunity to write his monologues, in the sense of he can be somebody who has these heroic seeming for the people kind of public monologues like that when he gives his ultimatums or whatever. But then you can tie in little bits for the players to notice that he might be a little less hinged and less actually dedicated to that morality than he seems.
Mm-hmm. And he does start as someone the players interact with, and so they come probably to a greater understanding of him and his motivations and the dialogues they have with him than the force that had done evil to him, until they start recognizing what he's doing, what he's after.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So yeah, I think that's a good spot to hold on to it for part 2.
Mm-hmm.
So then it's Kyoko's turn.
Yeah.
Hold on.
I'm ready.
I need to figure out how to set it to just adjectives.
Mm. Hey, X, do you want to make a villain? You over here meowing up a storm. Do you want to make a villain?
All right, figured it out.
All right, nice. I'm ready.
So your words are accidental and sulky.
Okay.
Man,
I can work with that.
Just so fitting for this beautiful city, and the villain is just this sulky, mopey, like vampire kind of guy.
I imagine that the villain ends up being someone within the royal family. Because the royal family for my castle town, for my kingdom, is essentially that they have a long lineage of courageous heroes. They are also the ones that really foster and propagate this overarching virtue of beauty and extravagance in the kingdom. And of course, the people are more than happy to go along with that if they have the resources, or when they have the resources. But it's really the royal family that backs all of this, that makes sure that all of these fantastic traders come in, that really give the people the support that they need to maintain the beauty in and around the kingdom, within the forests around and stuff too. So I imagine it's maybe it's the crown prince or something, not as old, of course not having as much life experience and not as wise as the king would be. Maybe he's a little naive, maybe he's a little stuck up, things like that. Because he's oh, I have this great lineage behind me, and my kingdom's beautiful, we are amazing, what could go wrong? And then something goes horribly wrong, and it's his fault. So we can say it's an accident in general. Let's say he was in charge of the hunting parties and stuff like that, and they ran their number one resource to extinction or something like that, how we had talked about this kingdom hunts owlbears and things like that for their pelts. What if they don't have that anymore, and it's his fault because he was supposed to either work with advisors to keep track of the population or keep track of it himself, things like that, and they're just gone.
And
He
definitely does feel like he's right up until there's no more resources. Remember one of the things we touched upon, I don't know if you wanted to adopt it or not. We said that in this opulence, they have a lot of very fancy, expensive clothing that even the commoners can wear because it's what's available to them.
Yeah.
And so that could be one thing, is that they're treating the commoners in this kind of cold climate that was dominated by owl bears on the outside, on the fringes. Where was I going?
They lost the train of thought.
Well, how
Chris-
does for the setting? How do the nobles differentiate themselves then? Because oftentimes it's not the abundance of resources is not the issue. It's so much the greed and the wanting to stand out that the nobles have.
Yeah, I was more thinking that it's like the level of extravagance, so like the nobles, like there's still like certain levels of extravagance. So like the peasants, they're like well kempt, they're clean, they wear slightly higher quality clothes than you would think like peasants would be wearing. Then you have like middle class workers, think like upper middle class here in the United States, I guess. And then royalty just go all out on this stuff. So in the end, they're the ones taking most of the resources in general.
So it's
And that could be why the prince is like sort of turning a blind eye, or like doesn't really realize that things are running out because they just have so much in the castle.
So the idea that they could run out is just inconceivable.
Yeah.
or perhaps
So-
he's just blind to the signs.
Potentially.
Are there those
Yeah.
then who are conceiving of it who are trying to warn him? Trying to raise
There
the
are,
alarm?
yes. The people are trying to. I imagine there are a couple of like royal advisors that are like, hey, we gotta slow down. Like, we have enough. We don't need to take any more right now. But there are definitely like people in the castle town that are like realizing the shortages. Like the peasants are starting to realize. Even some of like the working class, like the merchants are starting to realize things like that.
Classic capitalism.
Absolutely. But yeah, I imagine like the incident could even be like the kingdom is meeting with like a bunch of traders, like they have like this giant meeting of like representatives from all the people and places they trade with. And this prince speaks out, and he's really arrogant and ignorant and things like that, and it destroys a couple of their like really strong business relations. And then of course he gets reprimanded by his father and things like that. And he's like, he just gets really sulky about it, because what teenager who makes a mistake and then gets reprimanded doesn't get sulky? But that could definitely be where, like, he essentially just, like, festers in his own, like, sulkiness. It's really cliche. But he starts thinking, like, oh, if the kingdom's on, like, a downward spiral, they think it's my fault. What if I organize something where it doesn't seem like my fault anymore? Pull their eyes and their thoughts away from what I just did. It wasn't really my fault in general, sort of thing.
So his ability to influence policy and public sentiment and blame somebody else for the crisis would be his role as the villain, to deeply affect somebody's lives to the negative, not just in causing the crisis, but also in ruining lives over the crisis for finding the blame.
Yeah, absolutely.
Man, I really love that. I really love the idea of that meeting with the merchants that kind of drives him closer to the edge. It could even be that the merchants are kind of egging him on in a bad way, where they're like, we're seeing less production from you. You're being less profitable than usual. And he's like, I'm less profitable? I'm about to double your profits.
Yeah.
Storms off.
Like,
Storms off, fails.
Yeah, absolutely.
So where do
Yeah,
the
so I think that's... Oh, go ahead.
where do the players play into this intrigue?
So the players in general, so we had set it up that like the players would be meeting with like a merchant who would end up being like their quest giver and things like that, and this merchant is someone that like notices that something's wrong. No one else is really like saying anything about it, and they're taking that courageous step to say something, to actually try to work towards a positive change. So I imagine either that quest giver ends up being one of the targets of the prince's like emotional tirade, or the party like requests an audience with the king and with the royal family to like try to talk about what's been happening and get their side of the story, and the prince is just off his rocker. It could be like very minimally off his rocker, but like the party could notice signs that like this prince is potentially planning something.
Definitely. What's his big move, or do you want to save that for the trope?
I'll save that for the trope, because the trope could modify it.
Definitely. So yeah, you're ready to hold on to that for the trope then, or is there anything else you wanted to say?
No, I'm ready to hold on for the trope.
All right, so Charlie.
Yeah.
For your villain. Oh, interesting. Some interesting cohesive words. Your villain words are aboard and rainy.
Rainy?
Rainy.
And aboard like a vessel?
Yes.
Well, I'm thinking of a villain for, just to change it up a little bit, a sort of weird Western game. So you know the setting with the Revenge List and all that.
Yeah, the Roaring West.
And somebody could come into town who would be, you know, a new type of villain. And aboard and rainy, it's a landlocked town, so I don't want to go the easy direction of, you know, port town kind of thing. But there are airships. So,
Ooh.
an airship pirate or somebody who is maybe just a merchant who maybe have, you know, subtle pirate tendencies.
Yeah, that was our introduction to the Roaring West, was a pirate airship, wasn't it?
I think it was a transport airship that you dealt with pirates on the way.
Right, didn't they try to take it over?
Yeah. But
I remember the story. I
Probably-
gotta save going into it because we're getting to the time.
yeah, well, this will be pretty quick. I'll leave it quick. But this idea of a pirate, or rather a merchant maybe, who, you know, has the pirate tendencies, is secretly a pirate, probably secretly involved in the more paranormal aspects of the world, beyond the veil and all that. And the rainy part can come in maybe partly as a strategy, something he can do about the weather as he attacks, or maybe the name of the vessel could be something like the Rainstorm, the Thunderhead.
Or both, definitely.
Yeah.
So we've got a pirate-like merchant, kind of steals from the other merchants, and it seems like he disguises his ship or his or his boarding with like a thick cover of rain.
I like the idea of him moving in over a town and sort of blocking out the sun also.
Mm-hmm.
But if he used some tricks to actually gather a storm, some stuff. Okay, so a lot of the things in the setting involve spirits being kind of used and captured against their will and put into objects. The first big villain was this guy Argiv, who did that a lot. Tempted all the players with magical artifacts that they didn't realize involved enslaving spirits to create.
Ooh.
So what if this guy had some kind of storm spirit built into his ship, like bound to his ship?
Mm-hmm.
That could be a lot of fun.
Oh yeah.
So
That'd
this
be really interesting for like the party to figure out.
Mm-hmm.
And then what's
Now,
his
it's not-
motivation? Just profit?
That I've not been able to explore yet, because that takes more sense of, who he is yet. Because again, the villains for me have to have like, they're basically heroes. They're trying to do something that for them personally is heroic, and then their personal preferences for what is heroic don't align with the rest of the world. So if he's just for profit, that just seems too easy for me.
Right.
It could be something like that,
Hmm.
but a misplaced loyalty is another good one. Maybe he is a former colleague of Argiv's. So it might be partly trying to find out who brought down Argiv and getting revenge for his friend.
Just like all the heroes Argiv used to gallivant around with.
Yeah. I was planning on coming to town at some
now
point.
Now that the party has got,
But they are actual heroes and didn't have that fall like Argiv did, so...
This person that the public knew was a hero. Right.
So I think I would need a name, so I'll think about that as we move on.
Yeah.
All right. Welcome back.
Yep, welcome back for part 2 of the episode.
So this is where we're going to take
Those-
a rant. Oh, go on.
Go ahead. No,
Okay.
go for it. Go for it.
You first. No, you first. No, you first. Okay, so we are going to take a random TV trope and apply it to the villains that we've been creating. Are we doing the coin flip again, or are we doing the D6?
We can probably do the D6 now that we all have something established. So I guess I'll be 1,
That works.
2, Charlie, 3, 4, Vale, you 5, 6.
It is a 1.
Oh, I go first this time.
And your trope that you have to apply to your character is less... Oh man, this would be really good for the next episode. But it does also work for like a climax of the villain I'm seeing. It's called choke point geography.
Oh, I love it. Oh, that works perfect for a castle. Do you want to give like the quick explanation of it?
The hero's journey is a long, winding road, fraught with dangerous monster battles, maybe a princess to save, and the inevitable dungeon. Many game designers, mainly console RPGs, have a story to tell, which involves you and your party going from Town A to Dungeon B to see NPC C, and occasionally going back to Town A to stock up on supplies for the next encounter. With that principle in mind, the video game geography of the game's world map will be designed in such a way that one or more dungeons will lead to parts inaccessible by travel on foot.
Perfect. So I can imagine the party, we're at, like you said, at the climax of this villain's, at the climax of this prince's time as a villain. And I would say it takes a little bit for the party to like really realize what's happening like, maybe they end up talking to a couple of, like, the traders that come into town, or they end up, like, you know, hearing about what happened at the big meeting from, like, the king, or from one of the servants that worked the meeting, things like that. And they start to see, as they interact more with, like, the royal family, like, the party hasn't done anything wrong, so they're, like, welcomed into the castle to stay there if they want to, welcome to, like, come and go as necessary because they haven't proved themselves threats to the kingdom, things like that. But they start noticing the prince become more and more unhinged. They start noticing him skulking about more. They notice that there's really, like, a change in mood to the prince. Like, he was really, like, welcoming and stuff to them before, and now he's, like, sulky, he's brooding, he's, like, angry almost. He's conniving, stuff like that. And there are, of course, issues that are happening, like, some of the merchants in town may have gotten, like, attacked or something, or even, like, knights or, like, soldiers have been dispatched to, like, take away goods from the peasants, and even maybe from, like, the merchants in town, like, seizing assets. Sort of like the prince wanting to turn it on, like, his father instead of him, because, like, oh, he's just the prince, how much power does he actually have? Like, he can't dispatch, like, whole groups of knights and do all this other stuff. It's his father that's messing up. Things like that. And with the choke point geography, it could be... So I had set this kingdom to be in the mountains. What if it's settled on the edge of a cliff? Like, the castle itself is on, like, the edge. And the town itself falls, like, downhill from the castle. What if there's, like, tunnels underneath, like, sewage tunnels, something like that, and one of them leads to an opening to the cliffside? What if the party, like, in their chase of the prince to get him to, like, stop or even just, like, talk to them, they end up right there at the precipice?
Mm-hmm.
And they either have to fight and take him down, either let it, like, forcing him to fall or stopping him before he throws himself, or, again, the same thing, fighting and stopping him so they can talk. Things like that. Like, this prince, at this point, has, like, an all-or-nothing mentality.
I really am trying to hold myself back from saying this.
Sounds like you're not.
Gives me Dishonored vibes.
There it is. Mark the bingo card.
Bingo card. Because in the high chaos route of the original Dishonored game, where you are killing more people than you really need to, it turns the world into a lot darker state, culminating in the villain of the game with your daughter, the princess, with a gun to her head and monologues, and if you don't stop him, he will jump off the tower that you guys are on the precipice of.
Ooh. Yeah, so I just imagine, especially because choke point geography, as in its name, lends itself to the landscape more than anything else. But it's essentially where this prince makes his final stand. Like, maybe he, like, in, like, the final fight with the heroes, really realizes where he's, like, what he's done, how he's done wrong, and just in general, like, starts to think upon like his actions and realizing, wow, he's the exact opposite of the courageous heroes in his family lineage.
Or he could have been driven to insanity, and he's holding the
That
last.
too.
He's holding the last 2 owlbear cubs, and he's about to jump off the cliff.
Oh God. Yeah, like it could be, definitely could be something like that.
Because I can easily imagine he's driven to intense anger at the merchants who do only care about profits. And so, having the last 2 owlbear cubs, he has the means to destroy their profits.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, at the point where there's only 2 cubs, there's no more profits to be had.
Right.
Well, all 2 cubs is a hope of a return in the future.
Right.
And not even of profits. It'll be generations before there'll be profits. If there's only 2 left, it's the hope of conservation at that point.
Yeah.
So, if you wanted to make it more about the merchants and the profit in that case, maybe something more like a key, or something, like something that would allow them to survive, or something that's going to prevent a big finishing off of them.
Yeah.
The cure to a current blight or something. In any case, this guy seems like he needs to get eaten by owlbears by the end.
Yeah, absolutely. He needs his comeuppance at the end, but that would come down to what the party wants to end up doing with him. If they stop him from jumping off the cliff. Or they don't, like, inadvertently push him.
Benny.
Right.
Benny's another great villain from The Mummy.
It's been a long time since I've seen The Mummy. Oh, movie night, huh?
But yeah, so essentially, I think I'm gonna leave it there with the prince at this chokehold. I'll leave it there for whoever picks up this jar to really decide his fate.
Yeah. So then 1, 2, 3 is Charlie, and 4, 5, 6 is me.
Yeah.
It's me. It's a 5. So my
Wow.
trope. Sorry, let me pull it up. I accidentally went to the word
problem.
generator.
Oh.
Okay. My trope is and Chris, cut out all that. Cut out all that.
Don't do it.
Okay. My trope
I'll find
is
the timestamps.
up to 11:25, we'll say. All right.
Okay.
So my trope is big-hearted Bigfoot. Depending on how supernatural their pre-existing lore is, most portrayals of cryptids or other creatures of folklore usually portray them as wild animals at best, malevolent beings at worst. Lake monsters are generally imagined as crocodilian ambush hunters, dragging unwary victims into murky black depths. The chupacabras are vampiric apex predators laying waste to livestock and any human farmers that get between them and viable prey. I'll cut to... The one exception to this trend, for some reason, is Bigfoot/Sasquatch, who is very frequently portrayed as being the token good teammate of the cryptid ensemble.
Honestly, this should have been mine for my setting.
Yeah.
Bigfoot's the friendliest, Mothman's the sexiest.
So now
Chris, leave that in.
So now it's werewolves versus world's angriest man versus Bigfoot.
Oh my god, Buzz is... You could put Buzz in. in your story.
It doesn't have to be Bigfoot, but it could be just any cryptid that is, friendly. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
consider, what if the mold itself was actually kind of a cryptid, kind of sapient?
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
like the origin of the mold.
A mold person.
Oh gosh. A mold person, but not in the Resident Evil 7 mold person type?
A myconid, maybe?
Yeah.
Maybe.
So this mold that he's using to manufacture the doom of the crops in the city, and of course the mercenaries' reputation, is sapient, and has a lot of its strain taken by the villain, but is also resisting the villain. And so the players might come back to where they found the mold. There's the players, the ones that brought him this biological weapon sample. And
Yeah.
the mold finally deigns to talk to them, and it's just the nicest group of mycelium.
It's just a little guy.
Just
I think
yeah,
of
it's
the
just-
I think of the way the mold and the king was presented in the Mario Brothers movie. The one from the 90s.
I did not watch that one, and let's subject
Homework.
Rob to that movie. Let's subject Rob to that movie. Rob is our Mario superfan roommate.
I mean, Rob has seen it before. I think he enjoys it, just not as a Mario thing.
I'm sure.
But if you've never seen it, I'm pretty sure I have the DVD.
But yeah, we've got this little guy mycelium.
Just a little guy.
Honestly, whenever I talk about like fungus, I am inspired by the mycelium networks in some forests that lets the trees communicate with each other to an extent.
Yeah.
And so maybe this
They
guy
drew
is
inspiration from that in the Last of Us TV show.
and so this little guy is just seeing all the good things that everyone around here is doing, and they don't want these people to be hurt by the machinations of this one hero driven to madness.
Yeah.
And so then it becomes the good patron helping players, maybe making mold infested healing potions and whatnot to aid the player in taking him down.
Yeah, I'm not
Maybe
drinking. I'm not
like
drinking one of
using
those.
the mold as a maybe using the mold as a basis for an antifungal.
Right. Yeah. Oh, so the good mold wants to be taken to the villain so that way it can reintegrate with his strain and pacify it.
Yeah.
I love that idea.
Yeah.
And then also the mold can cast good berry, but it's not berries, it's mushrooms.
Good mushy.
Good mushrooms.
As a story, I like this. Personally, I hate it a lot.
There's a lot to work with if you're making fungus related magic items.
Oh god.
So yeah, I think the players have a shot at saving this town from this guy driven to revenge.
How does your villain react to this?
So there's definitely got to be a moment where the
Does
player
he know he took it
spoil
from
one
a
of his-
sapient strain?
one of the parts of his network, and then he may come into that knowledge. I don't know. I don't know which one is more story potent.
I feel like that would be up to whoever takes the jar to decide.
Yeah, it's definitely up to you whether he's like grooming this sapient fungus into hating everything, or whether it's not revealing its sapience to him and he's just like selective breeding the most vile weapon imaginable.
Yeah. Like the worst strains of it and things like that.
It's kind of a matter of how villainous you want him to be. If he knows and is purposely using it against its own will as a weapon, then that's a little more evil. If you want him to be a little more sympathetic, then he didn't know. He's just found this thing and is making use of it.
Right. I think he's just driven off the deep end in pursuit of revenge. And so I think it's more evil that he's explaining all of his motivations to this cute little mycelium guy that he has. And
Little guy, except as an evil little guy.
yeah, it's an evil little guy now.
Not evil, just hungry.
Slightly confused little guy. A hangry little guy.
And so the players might take back one of his spots that he uses to manufacture this weapon, and that might be how he comes into the knowledge that the players have pretty much the antidote to the poison he's trying to make. In essence.
Yeah.
And it will all culminate in a confrontation with him and his mycelium weapon in whatever state, whether the players can bum rush him with a tour de force to stop him, or whether he has time to manufacture an even more deadly strain by the time the players get to him.
Yeah, if he can get one that actually targets people, that would be the worst, like, apocalyptic sort of.
So
Finale.
Except unilateralis.
I think he is smart enough to realize what he came from being a farmer. He understands selective breeding. But he may not be smart enough to realize he's unleashing it against the people. Because if he knew that might be cause for his morality, but we're also saying he pursues revenge over his morality.
It's at least enough probably for him to ignore the signs.
What if it's that it's hurting people, but he's so blinded by his revenge that he's like, as long as it's hurting the people I need it to hurt, it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
He'd certainly be willing to ignore the signs that it's out of his hands.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, again, Dishonored, where you're grappling with the rat plague that the royal spy master unleashed on the peasants to cull the numbers, and then it starts affecting the nobles, and he's like, oh god, now I have to do something about this.
He's like, oh god, now it's our problem.
Yeah. And it had the opportunity to just grow and grow and grow almost beyond salvation.
Mm-hmm.
So it really becomes his problem in a higher magnitude.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's a fairly open-ended place to leave this jar.
Yeah. Now it is Charlie, our wonderful guest's turn.
What do I get?
This one might throw a wrench into it. I mean, no, it actually does fit a lot more. I'm foreseeing. The trope is just chaotic neutral.
Love it.
Okay.
Which just explains the alignment that I'm sure everyone viewing this podcast is aware of the D&D alignment system, where
Good,
chaotic
neutral, chaotic.
chaotic neutral characters do whatever the hell they like, and damn the consequences, unless they're too noble or hurtful. Watch out for that part. Some say they're the ultimate free spirits, others say that they're just crazy. Either way, there's no telling what they'll decide to do next. Their main and often only concern is their own freedom.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I think I have it then. Forget the captain of the ship. Let's say the villain is the ship.
Ooh. Oh, so like the spirit that he trapped into the ship.
Right. So what if it is not just any, like, nature spirit, but a full-on fury, a full-on spirit of rage and wrath, usually created by people who have abused the spirit. So maybe Argiv had something to do with the creation of this thing. And maybe it was used by pirates for bringing down the storm clouds on a community they wanted to raid or something. Or just cover for their ship. and it became its own kind of thing. So it's like a ghost ship, basically, a ghost airship that floats around, that can't be found easily because it floats around in a storm that it takes with it. And people are looking for it, trying to seek it because it's such a powerful weapon, not realizing that when they get to it, it will basically overpower them and kind of just like the spirits like that Argive captured are trapped in items or bound to the items. This could be a powerful enough spirit, maybe more powerful than they intended to capture, that it can trap the dead humans and keep their spirits in the collection on its ship.
Ooh, so it's turning Argiv's MO against humanity.
So everybody, all these powerful pirates and people want to find this ship and use it as a weapon, and they do. They find it, they board it, and then it goes on a rampage, maybe even pursuing their revenge quests, calling in their grudge. They're like, "Oh no, they found the ship! They're attacking us!" And then nobody ever sees them again. Eventually, it's just a ghost ship wandering around again, because they're already dead.
That hits like 3 personal inspirations in one idea. One of them is my D&D game. I can't talk about it because Kyoko is coming into that villain. The other one is Sly Cooper, which I don't talk about nearly enough. Where the first boss of Sly Cooper is this machinist who created this sky ship that constantly brings down heavy rain around his lair. And you have to shoot yourself out of a cannon to get into that airship to fight him and defeat him. And then also, my character in Dark Sun, in our old Dark Sun campaign, was a druid who gained power from a greater spirit, a rain spirit, a greater spirit of nature that had been captured for centuries by the nature-destroying Sorcerer King. And I didn't get to see his storyline manifest, but there's like, he was all about like the calm, cleansing rain in this desert, desert apocalypse, and there was going to be some corruption of this spirit as it's had to endure centuries of abuse, torture, and use against its will. And so that just hit all 3 at the same time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I may well throw Thunderhead into that campaign, so who knows what'll happen.
Exactly.
And you'll have the idea of at least a little bit of what's going on. So that'll be fun.
Fortunately, without re-listening to the episodes, I often forget a lot of the meat of the episodes. But I'm sure, because Kyoko, in previous episodes you mentioned, "Ooh, I can't say any more about this because I might use this against Vale in the group."
And then you take my ideas for other things. Which I'm not mad about. It's just funny.
And then
But yeah.
and I'm gonna I don't even remember what episode you said that for, so I'm probably going to forget it up until you unleash it on us, and I'm like, wait, this was a World in a Jar episode.
Vale, I'm telling you now, it was the Rebellion episode.
Oh,
it was
yeah.
the festival episode.
Yeah. Now I'm not gonna forget it. Thanks, Kyoko.
Mark your bingo cards. We've mentioned a previous episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's super interesting, Charlie. Like the boat itself is the villain.
I'm not sure how much it would be. Like, I'm trying to imagine how it would be to bring it into a full campaign, but it should certainly be a big threat, even if it's just like a 1 or 2 session threat.
Oh yeah,
'Cause what do you
absolutely.
do
Like,
about
a
it, you know?
mini arc.
If you
threat,
can't shoot it out of the
yeah.
sky, then the only way to do anything about it is to board it and hope you can contend with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Against the thunderstorms, it's calling too.
Yeah, that would make it hard.
Yeah.
So yeah, anything more about this jar, or are we ready to seal them up?
I can seal it up.
All right. Oh, wrong document. Wait, it's Kyoko's turn to do the intro and outro.
Oh, I thought we always just flipped on who did intro. Like, if I did intro, you did outro.
Oh yeah. Okay,
But
Chris,
either
cut that
way,
all. Chris,
yeah.
cut that all out. Cut that out, Chris.
Oh. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you. I think this is a good place to seal up these jars and put them on the market. If you like this show or need any ideas, you can find us on Twitter at worldsandjars or email us at worldinajar1@gmail.com. Does anyone have any last recommendations for things to check out? Because one recommendation I didn't get to talk about for the inspirations: Final Fantasy VI, such a good game, such a good villain. Definitely
Sweeney Todd,
play that game. That's older than me.
which is I recommend not the movie version, but they have like the concert version on YouTube that I really like with George Hearn and Patti LuPone. But it's a whole musical where all the main characters, except for the romance couple, are villains.
Ooh.
And that's really, and different kinds of villains, different motivations. Everybody's villains to each other, and Sweeney Todd is, in pursuit of his justice, in pursuit of his revenge, a villain to all of civilized society. But you still kind of root for him.
Mm-hmm.
I love Sweeney Todd so much. Editor Chris loves Sweeney Todd. So both of us could go on for so long about Sweeney Todd.
We got Judge Turpin, who's very Frollo-like, and of course Mrs. Lovett, who is arguably the craziest person there.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Charlie, where can our viewers find you?
You can find me at Fire Thieves Studio, which is on Facebook, and I've got a website as well. You can see the art that I create, the projects that I'm doing, the sports I'm involved in, and all kinds of stuff like that. I've also got games and stories, some self-published stuff. Yeah, my ADHD serves me well.
You guys can check out his Wasteland Bear collection, which I've shown off previously in the podcast, but he made Sheriff Sam for me. This little cowboy, fucked up little teddy bear.
I've made over 150 now that I've sent home to places.
Wow.
And
Yeah, we'll make sure to link where you can find Charlie in the description of our videos and also in the description on Spotify. So check him out.
Definitely. All right, do something good for yourself, guys. We will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. This episode was edited by Chris at Chris Rogers VO on Twitter. Go check him out.